Go ahead.
Aloha, I'm Dr. Sasha Lessin. I'm here with my wife and partner, Janet Kira Lessin, and we're going to do a series called People of Earth. The first part of it, as you can see from this table of contents, sort of the what we're going to present. This one's going to be about the origins of the people who are on Earth now, and the genes that were contributed to us, the people who are now the people of Earth. Next slide, please. We are going to look, in terms of our origins, at Lyrin Refugees, who came to this solar system and settled first Mars and Maldek, a planet that no longer exists. And we're going to see how the Maldekans joined the Martians inside and underneath Mars, and then how the Martians, Maldekans, along with people from the Pleiades, also Lyrin refugees, defeated the Draco Reptilians on Earth. We're going to look at the Nibiru Anunnaki colonization of Earth and the gold transshipment base they built on Mars. And we're going to then see how the Anunnaki created two Adams and Eves. Next slide. Let's start with the Lyrin refugees. 4 billion years ago, people from Thuban in the Draco area came upon the Pleiadians in the area of Lyra. And they came to the first planet in the Lyran group, the planet called Apis, and said, "We're giving you an opportunity to join the Draco Empire. Say yes right away, or we'll bomb you out of existence." And the people of Apis said, "Oh my gosh, we'll get everybody together. We'll talk about your terms. Wow, this is we don't have any capacity to fight you guys. We need to talk though." And they took too long, and so the Dracos, the Reptilians, bombed the heck out of Apis. Some of the people of Apis fled underground. Others fled out, ested all the other people from the Lyran planets to get away from these Dracos that were invading them. And the people of Apis, incidentally, later on become the Greys after many, many millennia in space. But in any case, the Lyrans fled the Dracos. Next slide. And some of them came to the Solaris system. That's our sun system. And they settled a planet called Maldek, which used to exist between Mars and Jupiter. And they settled Mars. Now, Maldek is a bigger planet than Mars, and it had a heavier, greater gravity. And so the people were bigger than the Martians, even though they all came from the Lyran group. And so there was a high civilization in both places. And the Lyrans threatened the Martians a little bit, but they didn't really do much about it. But they were bullies. They were bigger. They were in some ways more advanced, but they were a lot more militaristic. Next slide. The Dracos hollowed out a comet which had a rocky core, and they armed it with laser weapons. And they headed for Solaris. They did not want to let the Solaris sun system come into Lyran hands, and the Lyrans, that's our ancestors, already had a go at it. So here comes this great big thing. It looks like a comet, and the Maldekans saw it coming and said, "Oh my gosh, it's coming right at us!" And they communicated with Mars and said, "Give us shelter. We know you've got shelters under the ground, and this thing's coming for us. We don't have any shelters, and we hear that the Coombs also sold you some protection, a shield of some kind. Please let us come." And the Martians were reluctant, but they said, okay, you can see you're going to become extinct unless we give you shelter. So the Martians let the Maldekans who wished come to Mars and go underground with them. Next slide. So there they are underneath Mars. And this comet comes next to Maldek, and they aim their laser weapons on it, and they blow Maldek into pieces. That becomes the Kuiper belt of asteroids between way up there where Maldek used to be. In the meantime, the survivors are inside Mars, and they start quarreling with the Martians. And this is they're having trouble with each other. Next slide. Meanwhile, the Draco comet, it was really a war machine, obviously, goes on past Earth. As it passes Earth, it draws off the water. Earth was completely aquatic at the time and had water vapor above it. There was a lot of life in the seas, of course. But it drew enough water off of Earth to raise two continents, Lemuria in the Pacific area, and Atlantis between North America and Europe. And the so-called comet went on past Earth to the position right between Earth and Mercury. And the ice melted off of it. And you can see it was a rocky planet. We call it Venus. And the Dracos came to the surface. They built 7 domed cities for each of their 7 lineages who worked in coordination but didn't live together. And they built 7 domed cities on Earth, and they prepared a hollow base from which to settle Earth. They wanted to get to Earth. The Lyrans already had Maldek, which they destroyed, but they were still on Mars. And so the Dracos, Earth is perfect for us now. There's continents there, and so they moved Luna in place next. With Luna, the hollowed moon that's there right now, they put their food source, which is a lot of dinosaurs. There were dinosaur-like critters that had already evolved on Earth, but they brought dinosaurs. That was what they ate. That was their main beef, so to speak. And they landed first in Lemuria, and they spread all over the whole planet. There's a little map that shows you where Lemuria is. Maui, where we live, Hawaiian Islands, are some of the peaks of what was this continent of Lemuria. That's the other islands of the Pacific. Next slide, please. The Galactic Federation, by this time, organized itself, and they decided they've got to get the Dracos out of Earth. They wanted the Sun's family, Solaris's family, for themselves, and so they put a warlike group of Lyrans that called the Atlans on the Earth, on Atlantis, this continent between what becomes North America and Africa and Europe. Right there, you can see it on the little map. First things the Atlans did when they were confronted with these dinosaurs is they just shot them with their guns. That meant nothing to. They could easily defend themselves against these beasts with their weapons. Well, the Dracos say, "Hey, they're killing all our food source," and that was the beginning of this huge war for Earth. The Galactic Federation not only sent the people from Atlan, but they also took the Maldekans, who were really driving the Martians crazy, and said, "We'll get you out of there. Matter of fact, we can use you. We're going to let." Then they landed them in the Gobi Desert so that they could attack the Dracos from the other side. And so there's this huge war. At the same time, the Martians and the Galactic Federation got their spaceships, and they got the Dracos off of Venus. They took Venus, and they took Luna, and then they fought for Earth. And basically the Lyrans were victorious, on the surface, but the Dracos that survived went underground, and the Lyrans, who were from the Federation, would, whenever they heard Dracos underneath the earth, they would take their equipment in and bomb them from the surface and so forth. They got so vociferous with this, they wound up sinking Atlantis itself. Next slide. Yeah, this war went on then until the Andromedans couldn't stand all the disturbance in space, having a major war between Dracos and Lyrans going on. So they called a peace treaty in the planet called Hatona in the Andromeda group. And they made it in the treaty, said, let's make proto beings for every area where different groups of Lyrans and even Dracos have an interest. And from this proto-human, you can build other genetic things and condition your people. We'll see who does best on this planet Earth. And so we volunteer your geneticists, and we'll see what we come up with. So 12 Lyran groups, humanoid groups, and one reptilian Draco group volunteered, and they divided up how they would make the brain of these proto-humans. The Dracos, the reptilians, said, "Oh, we'll design the brain stem, your instincts to fight or flight, and that sort of thing." And other groups said, "Well, we'll take the cerebral part, so we'll be in charge of thinking." And other groups said, "We'll take charge of the emotional part, the limbic system. That's the most important." Each of these different groups thought their type of conditioning would ultimately prevail on Earth. And it turns out that, at least with the deplorables in the United States and people like that the Dracos were right. It's that part that wants to fight or run dominates. In other humans, the intellect dominates, and in still other humans, the emotions dominate. Next slide, please. Now, on Earth itself, we're looking at, how do we get our genes? Half of our genes comes from this proto-human that developed into an intelligent, very intelligent being in Africa named Homo erectus, a full-on human being, the ancestor of modern Bigfoot. But Homo erectus could communicate telepathically, didn't have to talk or make sounds with their voice, but they communicated with each other, and they were compassionate. They felt other people. They let animals out of traps later on when the Anunnaki, these Lyrans, came to Earth. And so these are critical. They had developed on Africa. They were fully intelligent, intuitive, compassionate human beings. Okay, next slide. Now, enter the people who are our immediate ancestors. Some of the Lyrans who had taken shelter went to the Sirius system, and they settled in the planet known as Nibiru, which had been formed when Sirius 3 went nova. So the royal lineages in the Sirius system are the ancestors of the Nibirans. And they said, "Hey, we're your royal lineage." And the others said, "Hey, leave us alone. We're peaceful people. Get out of here." And so the people that became the Nibirans left the Sirius system, and they settled the planet Nibiru. Next slide. And there was this dynastic fight on the planet Nibiru. And this is all going to be leading to how we got our population of people that we are. And one of the kings who had lost the fight for king stole a nuclear-armed rocket, and he went to Earth where he knew there was gold. And they knew there was gold, and they wanted gold on Nibiru because they were losing. They had a big hole in their ionosphere, and they were losing their atmosphere, and they wanted to float monoatomic gold powder up into their atmosphere to make a shield for it. So this guy who had been the king, he lost a fight for kingship. He stole a rocket ship before his rival who defeated him could kill him, and he landed in the Persian Gulf at Basra, which was at that time a huge swamp going way out into what we call the Persian Gulf now. And he aimed his missiles, took them out of the ship, and aimed them at Nibiru and said, "Give me back my crown, and I'll make sure you get gold and save the planet Nibiru. And if you don't do that, I'm going to destroy Nibiru and all its cities." Next slide. Well, the Nibirans wound up settling Earth. They found lots of gold. They traced the gold flecks in the Persian Gulf down to Southeast Africa, where the giants who had preceded them to Earth had died, and they're under the ground. Their veins became veins of gold, and they had volunteers from Nibiru digging the gold for many decades until they were on the verge of mutiny, and they just could not take it anymore. And so Enki, their chief scientist, who's known in the Bible as Lucifer in places, but Enki said, "You know what? There's this Homo erectus humans here. I think that our genome is compatible with them, and they're really interesting. They're intuitive, they're smart, they're really strong, and they created the genetics to create a hybrid. That's our ancestor. The first Adam was a brown boy, just like the Anunnaki, except for the fact that he had a foreskin, and the Nibirans didn't have, and that's going to be somewhat significant as we go on. But in any case, the first boy was brown. His name was Adam, or Adamu is what they called him. And his skin was red-brown, like the clay of Africa, and he was first a clone. And they made a clone woman for him. These first two humans had to be born in a womb. And so Adam, the brown boy, the first boy of our species, the clone master, he came out brown, partly from the Homo erectus, but also because there were brown as well as blue people among the Anunnaki. Nimma, their head female scientist, carried Adam in her womb, whereas the next child they made, the female, again supposed to be a clone master, was this blonde, blue-eyed, sandy-haired girl that you see in the picture on the far right, called Tiamat, and her mother was Nimma's co-wife, Damkina, who was the wife of the chief scientist Enki. And that's so from the very beginning. Then our species started with a brown man and a white woman, and Ningishita, or Thoth as he's known in Egypt, discovered, oh, look at this X and XY genome, and he got it, and he surreptitiously made Adam and the first Eve breedable, and they used them to make slaves, make mind slaves and slaves for their various settlements, and the chief scientist loved his people, and he gave them special education and special attention, but the commander of the expedition couldn't stand these humans, and he planned to just get rid of them, and they were an illegal species as far as he was concerned. Get the gold and leave. But that isn't what happened. Next slide. The second Adam and Eve came about when the first group of the descendants this was 300,000 years ago. The first group, first Adam and the first Eve, and they after a while, especially when times got tough, said, "What in the world are we doing? Getting all this yellow stuff? It doesn't do us any good. We know how to. We have to grow our own food anyway. We know how to do that. And the African bush is full of good things to eat and stuff like that." And so people who were working in the mines, when they got old, they were allowed to leave the mines. There were some mutinies. Other people left the mines. And the original descendants of Adam spread all over Africa, and they developed their own high cultures, and they were independent and free of the Anunnaki. They stopped working for the Anunnaki, and the boss, Enlil, known in the Bible as Yahweh, said, "Hey, what's with these slaves? They don't even want to work good." And he asked Enki, the chief scientist, "Make better slaves." So Enki said, "I know just how to do that, boss. I'll see what I can do." So he went down to where he had a place in Greater Zimbabwe. It's right on the Nilotic meridian. And he found two utterly beautiful girls bathing in waterfall, and he made babies with them. And he and his wife took really good care of those babies. The boy baby was named Adapa. The girl baby was named Titi. And Enki put all his attention educating Adapa, who turned out to be a fantastic genius, smarter than anybody they'd ever seen. And the girl became an incredible artist under the tutelage of Damkina, with all the arts that Damkina had mastered being transferred to Titi. Now, this kid, Adapa, was so utterly smart that he learned how to run their they had something which is very much like a heart thing, where he could actually change the direction of the wind. He had his own his own spaceship and everything. And the king winds up asking Adapa to come to Earth, to come to Nibiru, and so forth. But Enki said, "Don't keep him there, please, please, Dad. Send him a note. Send him back. I need him. He runs everything for me. I trained him to do all the stuff I don't like to do. He runs all the slaves for me. He takes care of everything. He's a mathematician. He's a genius. Please send him back. I don't want to do all that work." Next slide. Okay, another contribution of the Anunnaki to our population were the descendants of Prince Marduk. Prince Marduk had once been the pretender, the next guy to be king, but Anu displaced him and said, "Heck with you, go to Earth with your dad, Enki." And so Marduk lost his chance to be king of Nibiru, and he decided to make an alliance with the humanoids. So he married a beautiful hybrid woman named Sarpanit, and they had a kid together, Nabu. And together, Marduk and Nabu bred a lot of us humans. So there's a whole train of humans. Marduk later on becomes Zeus, who are bred by the direct descendants of Marduk. And that probably includes a lot of people in the Merovingian lineage, too. We'll get to that later on. Another huge addition to our population came from the astronaut corps. There were 300 astronauts that flew gold back and forth, ingots back and forth from gold was first harvested and dug out in Africa. It was shipped up the Persian Gulf to ports in Iraq, and from Iraq it was flown to Mars and put in a more transferable form, and then transshipped to Nibiru. And so this astronaut corps came down for Marduk's wedding. He was going to get married to Sarpanit, and by arrangement, after the couple flew to Egypt, because Marduk was forbidden to ever come back to Nibiru, because they knew he had a legitimate claim, actually, written into their law that he should be king, and he wanted to be king. and they realized that Marduk was allied with the astronauts. But in any case, the astronauts came down for Marduk's wedding, and when Marduk and Sarpanit went off to Egypt, where Marduk was given a fief, how do you pronounce it? The astronaut boss Shamgas, who became really good friends with Marduk when Marduk had been boss of the Mars base, got their 200 brides from the beautiful Adapa women and set up their guns and took over the communication and said, "Wreck to the commander and Leo Yahweh, you better okay our marriages or we're going to blow you to smithereens." Next slide. But these people, the Igigi, as the astronaut were called, settled. A lot of them settled in Canaan, where they ultimately became the ancestors of the Philistines. Next slide. Another important addition to our population, that the human population, the people we call us, was also done by Enki. Enki really liked his foreman's wife. Her name was Batanaj. The foreman's name was Lumach. And when the commander Enlil was putting a lot of pressure on Lumach, make the damn slaves work harder and don't give them so much food. And the slaves, by now they're Adapite, running Adamites, started threatening Lumach, and Enki said, "Well, listen, I'll protect you. Go to a place where you'll be safe, and I'll send your wife over to my sister's place." And as soon as his wife got sent over to his sister's place, Enki visited her, had an affair with her. They had a baby who we call Noah. The dad looked at Noah and said, "Hey, this kid's got blue eyes. Have you been making it with a astronaut?" And she said, "Oh, no, husband." Anyway, so that's Noah. And of course, Noah's sons, as we'll see in a later thing, were utterly important in populating the earth with our people. Next slide. Another important aspect of the population that the Anunnaki gave to us was Enki, who was liked to be subterranean. He had a wetsuit and all kinds of stuff like that. He liked the wife of the French king Chalaudio. And so he just got in his costume, and when she's swimming, he swam up to her and raped her. And she became pregnant, and she gave birth to the Merovingian king. And that's Enki's contribution to the Merovingians. In the meantime, later on, another addition to the Merovingians was Merira, who was a descendant of Jesus and Mary Magdalene, who was also Enki's descendants. And she married Merovius, who was king of the Franks. And so there we have, from the Enki side, we have the Merovingians, and then it gets added to it from the lineage of Jesus. So it's a double-powered Anunnaki type lineage that's claimed the royalty of all of Europe to this very day. Next. Well, that's our introduction to this series on the Anunnaki and what they've contributed. And this has been the series on genes that have been contributed to us. Now, we've got a lot of books. Janet will tell you a little bit about them.
As you can see, so far, let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down to Nima. They've been published. I'm working on Nin Harsog, which will be out early in 2024, and Enki will probably be later in 2025. So, Gods No More, Legacy of the Gods, False Gods, Marduk, an evolution of the gods, and Nima, Mother of Humanity, are available now on Amazon.com. So please support our work and purchase our books and spread the word. And our website, major website, is enkispeaks.com. There are lots of articles there. Dr. Lessin adds to it all the time. He works his Facebook pages on the Anunnaki, so please look for the postings there and join our different groups. And this is us. You can contact me, janetlessin@gmail.com. And this is our Stargate to Cosmos Expo we did in 2018. Okay, anything else you want to say?
Thank you so much. Stay tuned for the next one, which will be probably next week.
Yes. Thank you so much. Love, blessings, and aloha.